Welcome to The Appleseed, the storytelling podcast from BYU Radio, where your family can gather for great stories from great storytellers in every episode. Stories bring us together, and we hope the stories on the show will spark memories and thoughts that you can share with the people you love. I'm your host, Sam Payne. Are you a cat person or a dog person? I'm both, actually. Right now at my house, there are living a bunch of cats and a friendly dog, too. We love our pets, and the world is full of animal stories. Cats we'll focus on today. And the more stories I hear, the more I think that animal stories are really people stories. Now, today's stories will delight you as stories about cats and dogs, but they might also remind you of people you know, or maybe of the person you are. How about a story from the great Philadelphia storyteller Charlotte Blake Alston? It's a folk tale about cats and dogs and about what might have sparked the rivalry between those critters in the first place. We think you'll love it. Here's Cats and Dogs, recorded live in the Appleseed studio.
This, by the way, is my thumb piano. Long time ago, before you were born, before your mothers and fathers were born, before your great-grandparents were born, cat and dog were best friends. Yeah. They had their houses right next door to each other. Their children, their kittens, and their puppies went to animal preschool together. They shared everything. They even went to virtual school together. Shared everything they had. Well, one day, Cat was looking in her cupboards for something to eat, and wasn't much of anything there. So she started looking down on her floors and underneath her table and chairs and in between the cushions on her sofa, and she found some coins. But when she stuck out her paw and added them up, it wasn't enough money for her to go to the marketplace and buy anything. So she decided to go next door to her best friend, Dog's house. Dog looked in his cupboards, and there wasn't much of anything in there either. So they started looking down on Dog's floors, underneath Dog's tables and chairs, and in between the cushions on Dog's sofa, and they found some more coins. And when they stuck out both their paws, added them up, they did have enough money to go to the marketplace and buy something both of them could share. To buy something what? Both of them could buy something what? Both of them could share. So off they went to that marketplace together. They walked and walked and walked. They walked and walked and walked. Down the road they went. Down the road they went. Down the road they went. And soon they came to that marketplace, and there was all kinds of food there. There were all colors and shapes and smells of fruits and vegetables, all kinds of grain, rice and millet and corn and all kinds of fowl, guinea hens and chickens, and they walked from table to table trying to decide what they were going to buy and share together. There's something I forgot to tell you about Cat. In the early days of time, before you were born, before your mothers and your fathers were born, before your grandparents and your great-grandparents were born, cats loved cheese. Yeah, cats love cheese. And they came to a table where man had all kinds of cheeses. He had cheddar cheese, He had Swiss cheese, string cheese, Gruyere cheese, even had a little bit of goat and yak cheese. Good. And little Cat's mouth started to water. Little Cat's stomach started to growl. And Dog took one look at her and said, I know. You're a cheese fanatic. I'm a dog. I'll eat anything. So if you want to use the money to buy that chunk of cheese, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to share that with you. And that's just what Cat did. She put down her money. She put down Dog's money and picked out the biggest piece of cheese a man had on his table. It was such a big piece of cheese that it was really heavy. So they had to take turns carrying it. So Dog said, I'll take the first turn. So they hoisted that cheese onto that dog's back, and down the road they went, down the road they went, down the road they went. And as they went, Dog sang a little song, and this is what he sang. He sang, I'm carrying our cheese I'm carrying our cheese. Well, he walked along singing his little song, carrying that cheese on his back with Cat running alongside, but it was a great big piece of cheese, and after a while, it started to get a little bit heavy. So it was time for Cat to take a turn. They hoisted that cheese onto that cat's back, and down the road they went, down the road they went, down the road they went. And as they went, Cat sang a little song too, and this is the song she sang. I'm carrying my cheese. I'm carrying my cheese. Dog heard that. That wasn't what Dog sang. But he thought, well, she must be so hungry, she's not thinking about what she's saying. Well, they walked along with Cat carrying that cheese, singing her little song, and Dog running alongside, but it was a great big piece of cheese, and after a while, it started to get a little bit heavy. So, Dog took a second turn. They hoisted that cheese onto that dog's back, and down the road they went, down the road they went, down the road they went. And you know what Dog sang? I'm carrying our cheese. I'm carrying our cheese. And they walked along with Dog singing his song, carrying that cheese on his back with Cat running alongside. But again, after a while, it just became really heavy. So it was time for Cat to take a second turn. They hoisted that cheese onto that cat's back, and down the road they went, down the road they went, down the road they went. And you know what Cat sang? I'm carrying my cheese. I'm carrying my cheese. Dog heard that. That was the second time she sang that song that way. Well, he thought she must be so hungry it's gone to her head and into her brain. She don't know what she's saying. Well, they were getting closer and closer to the road that led to their houses. And the closer they got, the hungrier Cat became. She could smell that cheese. Oh! She could taste that cheese in her mind. Oh! All Cat could think about was eating that cheese. And by the time they got to the road that led to their houses, she was so hungry for that cheese, she just could not help herself. She climbed up on a tree, went out on a limb, and started eating up all of the cheese. Dog couldn't believe it. He opened his mouth to say something, and at first all that came out was, "Oh! We bought that together. It was your money and my money. We were supposed to share it. You cared more about your stomach than you did about our friendship." Well, that's okay. Because I know something. You can't stay up in that tree forever. You're going to get hungry again, and you're going to have to come down. And when you do, I'll be here. Well, that cat stayed up in that tree for long time. But she did get hungry again, and she did have to come down. And when she did, that dog shot out after that cat, and dogs have been chasing cats ever since. I'm carrying our cheese. I'm carrying our cheese.
That was Charlotte Blake Alston with Cats and Dogs. And listening to this story reminds me of a cat experience in my family. My wife and I had never really been pet owners. We had fish. We have fish. It's been that way for a long time. But then everything changed on the day that a bedraggled-looking tortoiseshell cat wandered out of the shrubs around our house, and we gave her a little plate of leftovers. The cat, as it turned out, was pregnant. Who knew? But not too many days after we began putting out a little food for her, she had a litter of kittens. Now, the mother cat kept that litter of newborns far away from where we could find them. But one chilly afternoon, we heard this piercing little cry from among the flowers on the south side of the house. And we investigated and found a tiny kitten, probably just a few days old. And we didn't touch it at first. We knew that mother cats come back for their kittens. But as time wore on, and the mother cat didn't come back, we started to wonder. And we got the vet on the phone, and we counseled with the vet about how to take care of a tiny, abandoned kitten like this. And almost before we knew what was happening, we were at the pet store buying kitten formula in a tiny bottle that looked like it had been made for a doll, and warming lights and heating pads. And we were waking up for 2 a.m. feedings and 4 a.m. feedings. We really poured our hearts into the project of keeping this tiny kitten alive. And I have to say that there was part of us, I'm not saying I'm proud of it, but there was this part of us that began to feel disdainful of the mothering of this cat, the mother cat that had left the kitten among the flowers. We will be good parents, we thought in that place in our hearts, better parents than you. And we might have thought that. I even had a dream one night in which the kittens could talk, and they told us that they wanted to hang out with us more, but their mean mom wouldn't let them. And in my dream, the kittens had a name for their mom. They called her the Claw. So in real life, we started calling her that, the Claw. And then the kitten didn't make it. I was holding it in my hands in the middle of the night, working to get it to take a little formula when it took its last breath. And it just broke us in half. In sorrow, we buried the tiny kitten in the backyard. And one afternoon, while we were still smarting from losing the kitten, my wife found herself in the backyard, and there, resting on its haunches across the yard, looking steadily at her, was the Claw. And my wife thought the Claw seemed unimaginably sad. And they had a long, silent moment together, my wife and the Claw, just looking at one another. Two mothers sorrowing together over a loss. It went on for a while. And when my wife came back in the house, she said to me, "You know, we were wrong. We were wrong to look down our noses at the motherhood of the Claw. Wrong to assume so quickly that she was a bad parent and that we might make good ones. We were so arrogant about the idea that we'd do better. We didn't. We all failed. And it must be tough all around." And she was right. It was a powerful moment. I don't understand the calculus of what might make a mother cat abandon a kitten. There are reasons. Let's maybe leave it at that. Maybe all I'm saying is that I don't know what it's like to be a cat. And the Claw and her brood don't know what it's like to be human beings. And that maybe even creatures who are very different from one another can, share the backyard without looking down their noses at one another. For sure, as time has passed, we're not as disdainful of the motherhood of the Claw as we used to be. The remaining kittens are grown up now, bigger than she is, some of them. And a couple of them will even let my wife scratch them behind the ears. They seem fantastically happy, and we probably have a lot to do with that. But they don't see it that way. As you can imagine, they attribute their general well-being not to us, but to that little bedraggled tortoiseshell cat that came wandering out of the shrubs just a few days before they were born. Their mom, the Claw. And that's where Charlotte's story took me. Where did it take you? And who will you take along?
So if you're hungry for stories, come and feed from the fruit of the tree of the apple seed.
It's great to have you with us, and I want to introduce you to another show from the BYU Radio family of podcasts. The show is called In Good Faith, and in this podcast, Stephen Cat Perry, the host, in each episode talks with a different person about that person's faith tradition. These guests talk about their relationship with the divine that will strengthen your faith, and Steve is a great listener. It's a podcast that helps you celebrate the power of faith and belief, a podcast on which you'll hear stories and accounts from believers of all kinds, told in their own words. You can listen to In Good Faith wherever you hear our show. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all kinds of places to listen to In Good Faith on demand.
It'll have us all climbing that family tree where we share together the apple seed.
We're so glad to have you with us today on the Appleseed Podcast. Our next story comes to us from Lyn Ford, who tells us a story about meeting a stray cat that sneaked its way into her home and eventually into her heart. Here's Lyn with That Cat.
My husband and I had purchased a house, a small house, a Cape Cod bungalow that we had decided would be our retirement house, our home. But we noticed that we weren't going to be alone in that house. People talk about empty nest syndrome. Our little birds kept flying back. But before that happened, in the first days of us moving in, we noticed that every time we got out of our car, walked up the back steps, opened the back door, a cat would leap over the fence from next door, walk right up to us, and try to get in the house. And I would say, shoo, shoo. Apparently that cat did not know what shoo meant. That cat would sit there and look at me with lemon yellow eyes, and his fur was sleek, a short hair with black fur. Oh, he was beautiful, but I did not want a cat. Now, we met the cat before we met the neighbor. Her name was Sharon, and Sharon rescued cats. She worked with a veterinarian. And she would make sure that the cats had had their shots, that they'd had their flea baths, that everything was taken care of physically. She'd bring them home and try to find homes for them. But it looked like this cat was already finding a home for himself. And she said, well, I'll try to keep him on this side of the fence, Lyn. I'm sorry. He just seems to like you so much. I think he liked my husband even more. And my husband claimed that he did not like cats. And one evening, with my arms full of groceries and my husband's arms full of groceries, we made our way up the steps, got ready to open the back door, had to set the groceries down, and when the door was open, Fritz walked right on in. And I looked at Sharon. She'd been trying to call him back. She said, I guess he's yours. If you want him, he's yours. Well, he was standing in the kitchen as if he was waiting for us to come in and feed him. So we opened a can of tuna and fed the cat. Now, when you've done something like that, you will never get rid of a cat. So I started trying to rename him because Fritz was a little bit too tonic for my neighborhood. I tried Moon. I tried Panther. I tried Bustopher Jones. He only answered to Fritz. And he wouldn't hang around me very much unless he wanted fed. Then he would rub in and out of my legs with that sleek black fur, and what I had admired in its appearance, I found absolutely disgusting up against my ankles. And he would wait for Bruce to come home. He'd wait at the back door like a dog, and when the car would pull in, he would perk up, Bruce would open that door, and that cat would start talking to him. And I would say to him, you didn't say a word to me. Not all day long. And then Bruce would walk to his chair to rest, and that cat would walk right along beside him just like a little dog and lay at his feet just like a little dog, and after a while jump into his lap just like a cat and go to sleep with him. Fritz never did that with me. But when he had decided it was time for breakfast, I would feel a pressure on my head on the pillow. He would be on my head on the pillow with one paw up my nose. And if I brushed him away and tried to get him to get down, he would turn himself around until he was nose to nose with me, and I would open my eyes, and there were these two lemon yellow eyeballs just staring at me, as if to say, what's wrong with you? Get up, I'm hungry. He also had some kind of love for us that caused him to want to bring us gifts. And he was not a birder, for which I was grateful, but we found out he was a mouser. Now, we didn't have mice around, but in our neighborhood there are tiny little shrews, the size of baby mice. And they're very, very quick because this land used to be countryside. And they still have survived. We were sitting on the deck one evening admiring the trees and the way the colors were changing as the sun went down when a little shrew ran up the deck steps. And I screamed, no! And Bruce grabbed the broom that was sitting there because we just swept the deck. And when we finished sweeping, we just put it by the door. Bruce grabbed that broom, and to keep the shrew away from my toes, he just brushed it away, and woo, it went in the air and landed in the grass. Well, Fritz ran off the deck, ran down, grabbed that thing, brought it back up the steps, dropped it at Bruce's feet, and he stood there looking at Bruce and looking at the shrew, and looking at the broom, and looking at the shrew, and looking at Bruce. It was like he was waiting for Bruce to bat him again. And Bruce tried to kind of sweep it, because it was still alive. And when he managed to sweep it off the steps, woo, there went Fritz again. He grabbed that thing, he brought it back up the steps so proudly, dropped it at Bruce's feet, and waited. So Bruce got the shovel and scooped it up, so that we didn't have to watch it suffer and die eventually. And he took it behind our garage, and he set it down, and I saw it just run away, and I thought, oh, thank goodness. Fritz is not a murderer yet. But he decided perhaps he should bring larger prey. We were sitting on the deck on another evening, and we saw a rabbit walking toward us on its hind feet. Now, you think I'm making that up? No, that's not a lie. That's not a tale. Fritz had the nape of the rabbit's neck. The rabbit was bigger than he was. And so I didn't see Fritz at first. I just saw this rabbit. It looked like its shoulders were up. Its ears were sticking up. And it was walking along on those feet. And then I noticed why. And I said, Fritz, stop. And he stopped. And the rabbit looked at me, and I swear the rabbit shrugged its shoulders like, really? Really? I said, Fritz, let go. And he let go, and that rabbit ran. But Fritz looked at me, and for the first time, Fritz spoke to me. And I swear he was saying things that are not polite. I said, be quiet, I'll get you some tuna. Well, as we got older, Fritz got older too. He was an old cat when we got him, but he was perky. But after a while, the perk was gone. And he moved slower. And he didn't wait for Bruce at the door. And he slept through most of the day. And then Fritz was gone. And we realized how much he had become a part of our lives. I missed that pressure on my head in the mornings and those lemon yellow eyes looking into mine. And Bruce missed the one he called his cat dog, meeting him at the door and sitting at his feet. And we missed all the strange little things that Fritz had done that we might talk about for the rest of the day. And that's when we realized Fritz had not really invaded our lives. Fritz had come home.
That was Lyn Ford with That Cat. Do you have any memories about dear pets? Have you ever learned something from an animal friend in your life? Have you ever been at odds with someone just like cat and dog? I bet you've got some stories. We hope you'll share them with the people you love. In fact, we hope you'll share the stories with us. We might share them on the show. You can tag us on social media or send us a message at theappleseed@byu.edu. That's the Appleseed, all one word, at byu.edu. And here's a reminder to check out the Appleseed lesson plans on our website, BYUradio.org. Whether you're a teacher, homeschooler, or a parent, you'll find lots of lessons and storytelling activities based on some of your favorite Appleseed stories. Find us on the Appleseed page under the For Educators tab at BYUradio.org. We want to thank Charlotte, Blake Alston, and Lyn Ford for sharing their stories with us today. You've listened to their stories. Now it's time to share some of your own. The Appleseed is produced by me, Sam Payne, Wendy Folsom, and Brian Tanner. Assistant producers include Garrett Gunnell, Carrie Griggs, Kay Hendrickson, and Nico Wetzel. And our post team is Trent Reimschussel and DJ Cromarty. We're pleased and proud to be among the many podcasts produced by the BYU Radio family of shows. If you want more great storytelling for the whole family, then search for our companion podcasts, Kaboom for original audio adventures, and Wink, stories for better bedtimes. All our podcasts can be found on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on the BYU Radio app or at BYUradio.org. Don't forget to subscribe, rate us, leave us a review. That's how the shows grow. I'm Sam Payne, and we can't wait to be with you again on the Appleseed.